Now, for more on that, we're joined by Wyn Grant, Professor of Political Science and International Relations at Warwick University. Thanks for talking to us. Do you see anything of solace for Boris Johnson to take away from this trip, or is it just good body language and good optics?
Well, it's very difficult to take anything away that's very substantive when one's faced with the situation that the UK is insisting on the removal of the backstop, and of course France and Germany and other EU countries regard that as vital and don't think the withdrawal treaty is open for renegotiation. So, I mean, essentially, it's perhaps the start of a blame game to blame the EU for the failure of these negotiations.
So that sounds like you would agree with observers who say at this stage no deal is inevitable.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I didn't quite hear that question.
From what you're saying, Professor, it sounds like you would agree with many observers who say that at this stage no deal is inevitable.
I think it does look pretty inevitable. It's difficult to see how a way can be found out of this impasse, given the red lines that the United Kingdom is insisting on, and of course the stance that's been taken by the European Union. I think, unfortunately, although it's not in the interest of either the UK or the European Union to have that outcome, it does look very likely.
So are we just going to have to look at this charade play out over the next 2 months until the inevitabilities click into place?
Well, of course, there is the possibility that some sort of challenge will be mounted to no deal in the UK Parliament. I mean, I think that's going to be very difficult for all sorts of reasons to actually bring that about, but that is possibly the best hope of having a postponement of no deal solution and then proceeding to a general election in the UK, which might lead to a different outcome, a different government.
OK, tell us a bit more about that for those who haven't been following the internal workings of what's happening in the Conservative Party and in the Commons. What exactly could happen to block Boris Johnson, or to prevent him from continuing in number 10?
Well, there are a number of ways in which this could happen. I mean, one would be to pass legislation which was well drafted and which required him to seek a further extension. The other way would be to have a vote of no confidence in the government and bring the government down. The problem is that under the Fixed Term Parliament Act, it's quite likely that he could stay in office and that he could organise a general election to take place after the UK had left the European Union on the 31st of October. So all these routes of trying to challenge the no deal exit are fraught with all sorts of constitutional difficulties.
All right, Professor Wyn Grant, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for those thoughts.